Adil, welcome onto the stage.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about car design and AI in car design. First, let's introduce ourselves. Adil, Jald, Darukhanawala, my first boss, who stopped me from doing something mundane where I would wear a tie on that AI profile as a tie, but I've not worn a tie for, I think, 15 years now. So Adil saved me from that. Editor at Overdrive, founding editor at Overdrive. Before that, Car and Bike International. He has authored plenty of books on Mahindra, working on a book on Royal Enfield, on BSA, a book on Mercedes.
Tata Motors.
An automotive historian. I don't think anybody knows cars and bikes in the Indian perspective like Adil does. And that's me, Sirish Chandran. I'm the editor of IndiDesign magazine. Have been testing, reviewing cars and bikes for the past 25 years now. Adil and I also have a podcast on the IndiDesign channel. If you're interested, you should check that out. So that's us. And we're going to be talking about AI in car design and AI in general. Adil, your thoughts on AI?
AI can't replace the human being, most important of all. If you understand that, then that's a good basis to start working forward on. Overall, if you see the design, way design progressed, automotive design progressed from draftsman to getting into the first wave of computerization, and then from there you got into these special design softwares, CATIA and whatnot. Actually speaking, everything what happened was to reduce effort from the point of view of the people who were trying to create something within their limits. Earlier, technology used to come at a price, and everyone said, oh, it's been designed by on computers, it's got this, that, CGI, etc. But the end of the day, what was fed into those things was still human input. And AI is also there. We are seeing the first nascent steps of AI. Everything on AI is not genuine, is not sacrosanct. A lot of it is false. I have experienced it myself. It will evolve. We were speaking to some of our friends from Ather and from Tata Motors Design outside, and we know that what AI will do is to reduce effort, iron out the rough edges in a lot of areas, and get people going quickly. So the time to market, they say about 36 to 48 months. If they can reduce it by, say, 4 months or 5 months, it's a great thing. And I think AI will work on that. And there are companies in India. You could do AI, etc. You could show up those renderings. And I always had to say about designers, their biggest task is not to sell their ideas to the public first. It is to sell their ideas to their, sorry to say, ignorant management teams within the company. Internal selling is the toughest part of any designer's job. You got to hold your ground, and that can only happen if you hit into the subconscious of that guy who's there taking the decisions. And in that sort of sense, I feel that AI can help. Like I saw, we had the cave at a couple of our Indian manufacturers. It helped quite a lot to convey that message of the designer in actual terms to a non-believing management. AI will help further that line of thought.
So what I love about Adil is that you will get the most politically incorrect answers, but a spade is always called a spade. To me, AI is just reducing the grunt work. Now, we run IndiDesign magazine, and for us, AI is a tool that we use for research, to clean up copy in terms of grammar, but the thing is that AI needs data. The AI needs to learn from somewhere. And AI reduces all the, like I would say, gada mazdoori ka kaam. For instance, you can ask AI, what does AI do in car design? And you will get an answer. So I'm not going to waste 10 minutes of your time and tell you what AI is going to tell you. It'll help you with generative design. It'll help you with analyzing reams and reams of data. It'll help you in tuning the ADAS systems, because ADAS requires a lot of data to tune it. Though ADAS and AI still can't account for the mess of Indian traffic, so ADAS is never going to work in our cities, possibly on the highways, but right now in the cities, forget about it. it'll compute aerodynamics, it'll help you improve your efficiency. But AI has that role. And it's not going to really take away from the designer's role, is it, Adil?
No way, no way. Not just designer's role. Many a time, even our people in authority who want to make certain rules to overcome certain challenges which society faces, they think AI is the panacea for all ills. Most of them self-created by the authorities themselves. But that's not the thing. They have to, if you don't have a grounding in AI, whatever you do, legislation, etc., is going to be causing a lot of trouble. So you need to be really well versed in what can happen and what can't happen. If you can understand what can't happen, that will be a great starting point, and then you build on from there.
So AI is a productivity enhancement tool. If you're not using AI, well, that is a problem because you're not optimizing your resources and not optimizing
efficiency.
Optimizing efficiency. But it will not replace humans. Now, what does car design mean to you? Adil?
For me, I got into this business because I love cars. When I was a kid in Sholapur, our house was very close to the railway station, and I grew up on a steady diet of steam locomotives. The one inanimate subject, mechanical object, which was a living, hissing thing. And it really did not need rocket science for kids of my age then to fall in love with steam locomotives. Then motion was very important. And when you saw cars of the 60s and 70s, there was a certain grace to it. Everything was not the same standard JDM pattern of design. You had variety. Then legislation got in. Once legislation got in, a lot of the hands of the designers were tied behind their backs, and you had to design a car or a bike to legislative mandatory needs to be met. I think that is where, so you need a car. When I look at the car first, without driving it or anything, it has to appeal to me. Do I want to open the wheel, door of the car and get behind the wheel or no? That is basically. In India, we also have this one wrong connotation. Design is not styling. Styling is part of design. So honestly speaking, when we look at the packaging in a car, I buy a car because I love to drive, but I also want to get my work being, commuting time being reduced and to make the best use of my commuting time in a very good frame of mind. So I need the ergonomics, the creation comforts, etc. for me to go from my house to my office, say a 30-minute drive, it has to be good. The clear-cut thing with our Indian masses is to differentiate style and design. Overall design includes style. Style doesn't include design. And I think that is something which many people have to understand that fact of life. For me, how a car drives, how I sit behind the wheel, is so much an intrinsic part of what design means to me. And I think that if you take the general lay public, he may not be able to emote the way I can do on details. But if he says, "Bada maza aa gaya gaadi chala," I think the designer's job has been done because he got that validation in that manner. And I think that is what good design needs to do.
And after a long day behind the wheel, a car should also make you, when you lock it, you turn back, you look at the car, you look at it again, and then you walk home, right? And that is design?
Few times yes, most times no, because there is nothing better than a motorcycle to make that happen and not a car.
So that's automotive design in general. Now I want to get you guys to participate also. What does car design mean to you? Sudhir, let's start with you. What does car design mean to you?
And let's not speak about the Pajero, okay?
I think car design to me is definitely look in the first go, but if it doesn't satisfy you otherwise, the look is quite meaningless. It has to be, you have to feel comfortable, you have to feel safe, you have to feel wow. That's
absolutely
very important. Yeah.
Anybody else wants to jump in? Ma'am, you right there in front. What does car design mean to you?
Yes.
Love. That's what.
Unfortunately, that does not happen, because of the height issues or, the height of the car, the buck seat that it is, it becomes an uncomfortable ride.
No,
Okay,
I can tell
so
you,
I think,
I understand one. Critically, the consensus here is one car may not work well for every
Exactly.
human being. The critical thing is then for you not to look at the car which is the latest or the most powerful or the best
which has
looking,
the biggest screen.
biggest screen. You need to go and find a car which works best to your application and to your thing. And I think that is where, as a designer, you can pick out the car best for you rather than just what is styled best for you.
Absolutely.
Ma'am, you were also saying something?
Chores that are there. So it has to be a best fit for the urban life that one lives in.
Yeah, it's fit for application is really the key.
So, parking becomes important and maneuvering between heavy traffic is important. So your car should be able to do it and not throw out other vehicles off the road.
What has happened now with the onset of technology and also the way Indian society has evolved from the mid-90s when the phase of liberalization really took root, you suddenly saw you had cable television being beamed into Indian drawing rooms, and the Indian perspective, the family guys, people in the family would say, why can't I have this way of life in so many different forms, cars being one of them. And from there onwards, this societal change happened. The aspirations of the Indians were just the same as what his counterparts were enjoying elsewhere in the world. So with that, you suddenly had an opening of minds. You saw that where earlier an ambassador of the Fiat was the only car you had, which you could use for any and everything, now you had got a car which could go off-roading, a car which could, what you call, denote speed, a car which could be a people carrier. So suddenly you thin slice the categories and you evolve lots of applications. This happened by design, didn't happen out of nowhere. The key thing is, this will continue happening. Cars are not appliances. Sorry to say electric cars, I categorize in that sense. For me, we have to have a sense of occasion, feel, that emotion has to drive. We are in control, not the other way around.
So taking forward from what you said, Adil, about cars not being appliances, today we've got this whole wave of electric cars coming.
I've got nothing to do with it.
Okay. So where are my friends from Tata Motors? I believe. Okay. So how do you guys make an electric car that is not an appliance that just takes you from A to B?
And I will also add one more caveat to that. If Tata Motors, or for that matter any other Indian company, can engineer that feel and that occasion, India could be the leaders in this business.
I'm going to contradict the great-grandfather of automotive industry, journalism, and design with his quote. A few weeks ago, he drove the Tata Curve EV, and he found it really exhilarating.
For an electric car, not every car.
It took him a few hours to get used to it. But see, irrespective of the powertrains, the drivetrains, and what you talked about, legislation holding our hands behind our back, it's still, the principles of car design stay the same. It's mixing art and fashion. A car is really something you wear. It's engineering, it's architecture, it's a place where you live in. It's bridging marketing and business, and it's a moving advertisement for your brand. So it's this bringing together of almost every design discipline, and really taking sheet metal, rubber, plastic, and glass and making it a living, lovable, hateable, preferably lovable item, that doesn't change, irrespective of it's being driven by steam, as Adil said, petrol, diesel, or electric.
Yes, very true. We are, as far as technology agnostic thoughts are concerned, I agree with that. I was talking about the traditional way of cars. Internal combustion engine, gearbox, not eliminating that. The feel from the steering wheel, no ADAS coming. The seat of the pants was a term coined for people who are enthusiasts who love to drive. Everything, if you take that thing away, you're making it so clinical and devoid of passion or enthusiasm,
So that's where emotion comes in. To me, car design is all about emotion. Maybe it's the different generations, a different thought process, but to me, I want to look at my car and say, a car to me is, you've got somewhere in life. Once you get somewhere in life, the first thing you do is, obviously, we are Indians, we buy a house because ghar to hona chahiye. After that, we buy a car because a car is a moving, living expression of yourself, of your taste, of your preferences. Like Adil said, you don't have to buy the newest, latest, greatest, and the one with the widest screen. You buy one that makes you happy. At the end of the day, it should put a smile on your face. And design is all about that emotion. And how is AI going to bring emotion into that picture? I don't have an answer. Adil, do you?
No, even I don't have an answer. But fact is, there are lots of geniuses in the audience who will try and do their best at adapting AI with a human face. That Humain or whatever is written here across over there. Maybe we could, try working in that direction. But again, it's an evolving process. It's an evolving new area in technology, which is trying to be an efficiency enhancer, trying to cut down times and whatnot. But my greatest thing, what I still feel is that man who envisages and does that first pencil sketch of a product which he has in mind. He doesn't do just one sketch. He does 2-3 different iterations of what he feels that project requires. So those are his vision statements, which then get amplified, and then you get AI into the picture. AI will not get you those sketches.
And that's where design...
Yes.
Design brings so much of emotion. Now, what you're looking at is the new Thar Rocks with the 6-slot grill, which Mahindra calls 6-pack grill. And when the first pictures of that came out, I put this up on Instagram, and that's the tons of comments on just that grill. It's irrational, right? A car is so much more than just the grill, but everybody has an opinion. And today with social media, everybody can exercise their opinion. Also, the design is what grows you closer or further away from the brand, because there is no logical reason for that volume of comments on just a grill. But again, that just tells you how emotionally people are invested in design.
That is the key thing. That's why you don't have people emoting about the Kelvinator refrigerator or the higher refrigerator. This happens only if there is emotion in motion. And that is exactly what happens. Design has to deliver that. If it delivers that, you're a sure shot winner there.
And again, the Thar Rocks has nothing to do with the Jeep Wrangler.
Nothing.
But half the comments here are Jeep Wrangler copy. Now, Adil, what explains that?
For this, you have to understand one fact of life. Amongst FCA Jeep, which is now the custodian of the Jeep brand, Stellantis. But Mahindra started with the CJ2A in 1947. And from there, it became the custodian. It brought the rights of the CJ3B. And what you are seeing here, that single-minded focus of keeping that CJ3B concept going through various iterations across till almost about 2008, 2009, marked Mahindra in a place where it kept faithful to the original Jeep philosophy and concept, which has already been taken away by various, from Willys to Kaiser to Chrysler to Daimler Chrysler, American Motors, and now Stellantis. So they had gone on across, but Mahindra kept faith with that original Jeep philosophy, the ethos, and they spawned different versions. And there, under the skin, everything was Mahindra oriented.
So isn't design also about staying true to yourself,
Yes.
staying faithful to your origins?
Yeah, Shirish, one more thing across we see, and I always draw this attention. Ford of America has had a dismal, what you call, record doing cars. All its saloons have gone off. Their best-selling vehicle in the US is a pickup truck, the Ford F-150. But the only car which really works for them is a reincarnation of the 1964 and a half Ford Mustang. And it's one of the best-selling vehicles. So they had to go back to their legacy roots. Same Volkswagen went to the legacy roots with the Beetle, but that was not conceived properly. What went well was Fiat with the 500. So you need to know what you pick and choose and how you address that and get that original character flowing in modern day times. So this car has a top hat which harks back to the 1950s, but it's thoroughly modern, refined, best of all, done in India.
Right. So that's heritage, but also design is about looking into the future. Now, this is the BMW X6. When it first came, the standard response from journalists was that this is the answer to a question that nobody asked. Nobody knew that they wanted a sports car on top of an SUV. Like, what sense does that make? Now, journalists have an opinion. The buyers have an opinion with their wallets. And buyers bought SUV coupes. And that has now spawned what you see today and what you will increasingly see, the whole breed of SUV coupes. 2 weeks back, 3 SUV coupes were launched in India at the same time. The big picture is the Tata Curve, then the smaller 2 insets, that's the GLC 43 AMG and the Citroën Basalt. All SUV coupes, all coming in at the same time. It's not like one came, 2 years later, somebody else came. So everybody thought about this probably 3-4 years ago, and it came to market at the same time.
Critically, they have come at 3 different positioning in the pecking order. So once you got absolutely base standard with the Basalt, then a leg up with the Tata Curve, and then the rarefied structure with the Mercedes. So yes, that line of thought is there. No car company is immune to seeing what trends happen. They are willing to cash in on this sort of thing, but it has to be done tastefully. And it has to be done in such a manner that it looks the part. Otherwise, you can do a completely different take and say we are different. But many a time, different doesn't sell as well as being in conformity with what a person will visualize and feel good about.
But is this design for design's sake?
Car manufacturers want to sell and push as much metal as possible to add to their... So they have already got, and the ways of car manufacturing today is, you have got versatile architectures, the platforms which can be moved, so the modules which are there for front suspension, rear suspension, what you can package in between wheelbases of different sizes, tracks and all that, and plus engines are already there, you can play around with engines with different transmissions, different fuel sipping habits. So today people do what you call, want to have as varied a portfolio as possible. It's a tough time for many of my friends. Tata Motors is really what you call working on so many. Ajay is really scratching his head about the next breed of what will follow after the Tata Curve. But yes, this is something which is now a given in car manufacturing circles. India, for us, as I say, we got hooked to the car at we gave away almost about 70 years to the rest of the world as far as car design, car manufacture was concerned. We are trying to recover lost ground. So our romance with the car is still ongoing compared to whatever the government may want to curb us and whatnot. But our romance with the car is still ongoing. So yes, there will be quite a lot of great stuff which will come out from all our designers, and hats off to Tata Motors and Mahindra and also all our motorcycle guys. Our motorcycle guys are the best in the world, let me tell you that. There is no question about getting overawed by the Japanese or the Italians. We have got a leg up on them. The Japanese or the Italians cannot design, engineer, and manufacture the bikes which we have here at the price points which we do. It's just impossible for them to do. So if you can see where we are at that point, same for the cars as well, if we can, what you call, rise to the occasion with great design, great smart thought, we can really make a big dent in the minds, not just with consumers in India, but in a lot of places in the third world nations, at least to begin with.
So let's pump the brakes for a bit and forget what's next, okay? But to look at what's next, you have to understand the past. Now, out here, that's the Tata Sierra, and the next picture is the Tata Estate. These were the first two vehicles to be designed in India. These were not hand-me-downs from anywhere in the world. No better person than Adil to tell us how these came to be and what were the design skills that we had in the country back then.
Actually speaking, the genesis for these two was already in the minds of Mr. Suman Mulgaonkar, who was then the chairman and managing director of Tata Telco, as it was known then. And they were trying desperately hard to get into cars. And the government, for all its things, only gave lip service to many companies, and they ramrodded Maruti through. So Tata's, without anything, this went on ahead and prepared the Tata 206 pickup. They wanted that ladder, body on ladder chassis approach. So they said, first let us prove the aggregates on the pickup thing. The front end was pure car, and then you had a load bed. So once this thing happened, then Ratan Tata also came into the picture. He had just joined Tata Motors, Telco then. And between Mulgaonkar, JRD Tata and Ratan Tata, the decision was taken, what have we got to lose? They had already tasted success then against the Indo-Jap LCVs with the 407, which really dealt a death blow to all the so-called technologically proficient LCVs then, and they just destroyed those guys with the 407, hardy, very reliable, fuel efficient. They did that. Okay, ergonomics might not have been great. So from there, they decided to do this, and Ratan Tata, with his inkling for American cars, he always had a soft spot for American cars, whereas Mulgaonkar always looked at the Germanic, the Teutonic effort. So the front end, what you see is Teutonic stuff. What the rest of the body you see is American. And this was a happy medley of things which they did it. Of course, there were lots of areas which could have been really good, but it was a first step. The critical thing is these two cars got Tata Motors going. But I will share one very important bit of detail with you, which not many. There was also a car after these two cars known as the Sumo. Let me tell you that these two cars were done in ERC, but the Sumo was not done in ERC. There was another, at that time, all these various department, divisional heads of Tata Motors were really resident Hitlers in their own thing. So, and then it was beneath each other's thing to speak directly to one another, even tell what they were doing. So there was one Mr. Nath who was head of one division, and he tinkered around with a Sierra wheelbase chassis, and he, with a number of panel beaters, did the Sumo. It was not signed off for over 2 years. Then suddenly one day Ratan Tata saw it and said, why are we not making it? That was how it happened. So it was not ERC. That became a separate hobby project of someone, but it was just right. So you need certain sparks of genius. Good or bad, I don't know, but it happened. And that Sumo was great, but Tata Motors had Mahindra on the run, totally on the run, only for them to totally destroy the essence of the Sumo by making it a people carrier, load carrier. You could carry 40 people. Oh, that's not the thing the Sumo was designed for. So you need to know where to draw the line, and if you have a good thing, how much conviction do you have to keep that good thing going?
So imagine back then, you could take a car that you were already selling, you could get a couple of panel beaters, you could beat a body into shape, and then hope that somebody senior up in the management would look at it and greenlight it.
That's exactly what happened with the Mahindra Thar, the first generation Thar. There was a maverick engineer, very passionate, a great enthusiast, who knew his cars inside out, from his days in premier automobiles, fettling Padminis. Behram Dabar was in charge of a division in Mahindra and Mahindra, and he saw the plethora of chassis, different wheelbases, aggregates, engines, etc. And he cut the front end of a MM540, got the chassis of a Mahindra Classic, he got the Peugeot XDP engine, etc. And he created that Thar 3 years before it came to market. And the management didn't want to do anything with it. Till one day he accosted Anand Mahindra and said, please see this vehicle. And Anand said, okay, why are we not doing it? So it needed just a small word from the top end, and then everyone fell into line. But it was there for the management to have looked at it, and they steadfastly refused to look at it. You will not believe one more thing. It was the most cost-effective project ever done by Mahindra. I was there at the, what is that plant in?
Kandivali.
At Kandivali plant, when they had this press launch. And I remember Behram and Rajan Vadera, who was head of engineering then, so they were walking from the main building to the place where we had the press launch. So Rajan asked Behram, how much have we invested in this project? What is it? He said, sir, it is just nothing. We took this. So, but he said, but kuch to bolo, the press will ask me. He said, sir, 25 lakhs bolo. So he said, are you sure? He said, yeah, there's nothing. Everything has been paid for, amortized. They walked about 10, he said, 25 lakhs is too much. I'll say 50 lakhs. By the time they came to the Pandal, it was 50 crores. So you can understand that this was an enthusiast churning the design in his mind, cobbling together everything and making it all work, which so many of the marketing whiz just couldn't see or appreciate. And then it became a roaring success. So what you see here and the first generation Thar and the Thar Rocks are basically what one individual's efforts to say that there is a niche and we should exploit that, which was beyond the scope of very many other product planners and all that. And this is where emotion comes in. And if you can do that emotional bit there, while you hold your ground and don't let go, that is how it happens.
So now let's take you through what a modern design setup looks like. Can we have the AV, please? So this is the Tata Motors Design Center in the UK. We recently visited during the unveil of the Tata Curve. So this is in the UK. It's at the Warwick University campus. And the reason why it is there is because this is a collaborative workspace. So Tata Motors Design, Engineering, JLR, the Warwick University itself, the Warwick Manufacturing Group, and Agratas, which is Tata Motors' battery startup, they are all based out of there. Statement staircase, all design studios seem to have that. Now we'll just do a quick walkthrough of the design studios and the setup. This is the design offices, one of many offices. Now this, I was surprised to know that they actually work on Photoshop. Everybody uses Photoshop, right? They work on Photoshop using your modern a tablet and a pencil. But you can also use pen, paper. I've seen them using that as well. So this is how designs come to life. How it originates out of the designer's mind, and you get something like the curve that you see out here. Paper, good old paper and pencil. Things like these are the basics, and this is not something that AI can possibly replace. You still need that human touch and intervention. The clay modeling studio. Now, this is where you physically see what a design is going to look like in the real world. If you see, one side of this model is painted, the other side is clay. They have a paint shop also at the design studio, and once it is painted, a design model looks like a real thing. And with this kind of a model, you can do one side, replicate that on the other side using a milling machine, but the human touch is still so important. Finessing the details, getting that right proportions. Now, this is the design showroom. What you can see is the Punch and the upcoming Sierra. This is the Curve, and this is where management reviews design. So you got your fancy studio lighting, you got a turntable where you can go through all the details.
Just
and then
look at the gap between the wheel and the wheel well. Someone needs to address that. You need to have that stance perfect.
So anyway, too late for Ajay and his team to address that. That's the EV curve, and this is the ICE curve out here. So two models on the same platform. This is where the hardcore engineering is done, the virtual reality studio, so using all your software, mathematical models, where you see all the little details, you finesse the curvature, the shut lines, look at it in different atmospheres, outside, indoor, and get all the detailing and proportion just right so that a car looks really good. And this is an example of collaborative working, where using these VR headsets and this styling buck, where the three different Tata Motors, can we pause out there, please? So the three different Tata Motors studios can actually communicate with each other.
In real time.
In real time, finesse the details. So somebody sitting in the UK, somebody sitting in Pune, you can actually they actually talk to each other and finesse the smaller, finer details. In fact, with the curve's original design sketch came from the Italian studio, obviously possibly looking at the Lamborghini Urus. The inspiration came from there. The interior came from Pune. The design work was done in the UK, and then the final finishing was done in Pune because here's where the vendors, the suppliers, all of that are based. So again, collaboration. And finally, this is the color, material, and finish studio where you decide upon the material for the seats, the colors, the textures, everything that you touch, feel, see. And finally, you look at the model in the open. So this is actually clay models, okay? This is not the actual car. But this is how you do a final sign-off. And an interesting thing, Adil, about this is that because this is at the university campus, it's a no-fly zone. So there are no drones, there's nothing looking over the thing. So there's no question of the design being leaked. So that's a quick look at the design studio. And out of these studios, okay, the inspiration, which is your original Sierra, which we talked about, and what's coming up next, which is the Sierra EV. Now, we've talked about AI and AI being a productive tool and an efficiency enhancement tool. But can AI bring that human element? The Sierra EV, when it was first shown at the Auto Expo, I was there, we were there, and the roof literally came down with the journalists applauding. Now, journalists are very cynical as a bunch. We are critics, and our job is to criticize. But when we saw the Sierra concept for the first time, we were like, man, this is it. This is something that journalists will actually put their money on. And this comes out of a designer's heart, does it not, Adil?
It has to. There is no escaping that fact. You have to be in it. You have to, like I said, when we used to do whatever magazine we did, unless it didn't pass muster by us, it would never pass muster by the reader. So in that sort of sense, the designer is also that. It has to strike a fire in his belly, and when he, gets those curves, those lines, those proportions, the stance. And I must also tell you, that year at Auto Expo, Tata Motors design made an exponential leap over so many companies. You also had Mahindra, which did an XUV 500 coupe. Aero. You had to see that, and you had to see what these guys were doing. So there was a vast gulf. And not just with, let's not only take Mahindra into account, but it shamed a lot of global manufacturers over exhibiting there. I think design, if Tata Motors' success right now has to be looked at in one critical area, it has been their design. And you will use design to sell your cars in the best way possible.
And we're not just talking about Tata Motors here. We're talking about Indian design.
Yeah.
You know, there was a really nice question that we had outside. Is Vrishali there in the audience? Can you pass her the mic? And Vrishali, can we have your question before we end? We got 1 minute left.
So I was asking you back there that there's a slew of motorcycles getting introduced.
Oh, good. Finally, we got a motorcycle question.
Yes, and you're not talking about motorcycles, and you said you have to turn back to fall in love with the motorcycle. So
yes,
there is a slew of motorcycles coming in, and there is everything looks very similar. There's Java, there is YesD, now there is BSA. And how are you expecting people to understand the nuanced differences while you're choosing one?
Yeah, very true. It's just like Maruti, 800 Alto, WagonR, whatever is the next, that small two-cylinder thing. Then you go on to the, what do you call?
The Celerio,
Desire,
A-Star.
Celerio. So they adopted that. But what is important, if you look at the Java and you look at the ESD, you tend to like that irrational statements on the rocks. The same thing applies there. You tended to look at them only from the prism of them both sharing the same power plants. But the turnouts are different. The intended clientele is different. And the BSA Gold Star is completely different. You can't, what you call, they are all neo-retro, by the way. And that is a very, very, Triumph for that matter, is selling the bulk of its bikes in the neo-retro class, the Bonneville, the Speedmaster, or the Thruxton. They have that. People have stopped buying 2,000 miles per hour liter bikes and hyper bikes because they are technologically so over the top, and not many can even harness 10% of the performance potential from them. People don't want to be riding scared with those bikes. People want to be riding in a way that they enjoy motorcycling. Speed is not the end all and be all on a motorcycle, which I always have observed and believed. Sure, you need some time for a motorcycle to have that performance to do its bit, but maybe that is once in a month or once in a year. You need to have a motorcycle which is an extension of yourself and you feel good riding it. You want to see the world go by across over there in the best possible manner. So yes, there are differentiations. The neo-retro craze, even Honda has fallen prey to that. Blatantly copied the Royal Enfield with its, whatever that big 350cc bike, and it came a cropper. You can't copy neo-retro legacy. It has to be of your own. So that's the one thing which I say to all designers. Only if you have a legacy do you enter and embrace in that vein. Don't try to push the boundaries there.
So Adil, I think they're going to throw us off the stage. Thank you for your time. And Adil, thank you for your inputs. I hope you enjoyed that.
Chalo.